Hi, friends. Welcome to my new YouTube channel that is not even named yet. I'm Melissa, and I'm going to be talking this evening with you about the value and the importance of knowing yourself, aka emotional intelligence. I'm not sure if you've ever been in a situation where you've wondered, why do I act this way? Why do I respond this way? It takes even a little bit of, or a certain amount of awareness to even ask yourself the question, why is it that I respond in situations like this in the particular way that I respond? I distinctly remember getting to an age where I started to get really curious about my particular responses to some things. And my very first time wondering why I responded a certain way was actually back in my early 20s, prior to any even remote thought of, or not even an idea that I would ever start to heal or grow. I would disassociate. So if something came up into my existence that was really emotionally intense, I would begin to completely disassociate. And it would feel as if I was, at first, it would feel like I'd be overwhelmed by emotions like anger or fear or whatever. I didn't even really know how to name emotions then. It was just either comfortable or uncomfortable. And I would become super overwhelmed by emotions. And if it got to be too much, and I don't really know what too much was, and I didn't have agency over that, but it would get too much, and then I would completely separate myself, and it would feel as if someone took a large container and just placed it right over me. And it was like I could hear like like if someone was yelling at me, I could hear like real fuzzy, and I could see the expressions on their face, but I couldn't feel anything anymore. It would just completely take me out of whatever it was that was happening. And I'll never forget the first time that I was like, what is happening? Like, I was still doing it. I was disassociating. I wasn't there. I didn't know the word for it. I was doing the thing. And I was real curious as to what was happening. And I felt like I didn't have any control over it. Like, I wanted to pop through that bubble and re-engage. I wanted to be present, but I didn't know how to, and I didn't know it was happening. And it was a lot of time until the very next time that I felt I was curious about the way I responded to something. But I distinctly remember the first time saying, I'm responding in a way that I have no control over, and I'm curious as to why this is happening. And that was probably at the age of 23. And I didn't even start that might have even been like 21. And I didn't start my journey into self-awareness or self-knowing until the age of 20, almost 27, when I became sober from opiates. So in that time span, I believe I have created a lot of self-awareness through certain practices of self-inquiry. And this is just a little tidbit about why this is an important practice and how it's going to add value to your life. So first of all, I believe that it's obviously valuable that we understand how we're reacting so we can have agency over our participation in our responses, right? So if I were to take for instance of what I was experiencing in my early 20s, it would have been really nice if I would have been able to re-engage at my own will and then participate in that conflict or confrontation the way that I wanted to. But this was a something that happened, a protection that happened or that was developed in my life to protect me. So clearly at that point in my life, I didn't understand how to manage my emotions, And I think, especially if you're watching this video, you have an idea of why you desire to at least understand and manage your own emotions. Emotional intelligence is just the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your emotions. And this helps in relationships, intimate relationship, friendships. It helps in, really every aspect of your life that there's going to be emotions involved. And as a human being, emotions are involved in everything we do. Why does that matter? Well, emotional intelligence to me matters because I care. I care about how I affect people. I care about the effect I have on people's emotions and lives. I like to have agency over my life. I feel like understanding the emotions gives us the utmost agency over our lives. Later on in another video, I will start to talk about emotions and, the energy emotion and the way that these emotions can affect us and bring things into our existence and into our lives without us even expressing them or anything, because we are just naturally always expressing emotion just from being a human being. But I think we all have the experience in our lives, I'm certain, where somebody mismanaged their emotions and mismanaged their emotions, their reaction, and it hurt us. And oftentimes it's through words or even physical actions that, words are something that can really change us, and they could really shift the direction we go. I remember in high school, I super duper loved photography, and I was in a photography class, and I brought my assignment to my teacher, and he looked at me and he just kind of laughed and he said, "You should have taken ceramics." And that shifted me. I was so ashamed from that point forward. And I dropped out of photography, and I didn't do it again until well into adulthood. And I ended up being a pretty good photographer. But to go backwards to say, I think we've all experienced something in our lives where people have mismanaged their emotions and their words, and it affected us in a way that didn't feel good or didn't serve us, And having had that experience, I want to be able to not change somebody's, trajectory in life in a negative way as much as possible. I want to add to people's life. I want to be able to utilize this human experience in a way that adds to other people's lives. So clearly, being able to understand the way I tick and understand the way that emotions affect me is going to be valuable to me. It also, I've noticed for myself and my journey that understanding myself, meaning something external comes to me and happens, whether it be someone saying something or a car accident or, whatever, something happens. And I have an emotional reaction. So a buildup of sensations and emotions in my body. And when I have the ability to experience it, so because when it's brand new to us and it's raw, and we're not used to allowing ourselves to understand this aspect of being a human being, we just have a program reaction, and it's like something happens, we react immediately. So it takes not only awareness, but it takes practice to be able to experience it rushing through the body and to stop and just be present with it. We're not being present with it to hold on to it. We're not being present with it to allow it to grow. We're being present with it so that we can give ourselves a little pause. And in that little pause, which will feel like a long pause because it's so extreme and it feels so uncomfortable, but in that pause, that's where the power of choice comes in. That's where we get the agency. That's where we get the will to choose the way that we want to respond. And that in itself is practice. And my reactions to really extreme things when I was younger was, either dissociation. And that was no fun either, because I know, like looking back on my past, I know that I hurt some people through that because I disengaged, but it was probably the safest reaction I had because I literally didn't say or do anything. Safest meaning it had the less reverberation, but my other MOs or other reactions were to yell, to defend, to some of them were run, just like get out of there, like just physically leave the situation. I didn't have a lot of really healthy forms of responding back when I was younger. So now that I have that understanding and that intelligence, and it's like a muscle that has to be strengthened. It's literally like I just started going back to the gym, and I am currently working on my hamstrings, and I've always been a tippy toe walker, so I have like really, really poor hamstring situation in my body. And it's uncomfortable. My squats look weird. It hurts. Like it's growing that muscle isn't pretty. It doesn't feel good, but if I want to have that strength, I must go endure this. And that is exactly what building this muscle will feel like energetically, emotionally. And the other part of it that I feel is really valuable is that we get to contain our energy and not seep it out. It's really exhausting, not only for those around us, but for ourselves when we are seeping this energy out through anger and explosions or whatever, running or, disassociating. It's exhausting. It's exhausting emotionally and physically and to the people around us. And so being able to contain that, and I'm not talking about shoving it down, because obviously that's an entirely different method of reacting. And I do like to put them in two different categories. And they might seem very similar, but either we react or we respond. I love the word responsibility because it's the ability to respond. And to me, a reaction is just a programmed result of something that happens. And response has that little layer in between of the choice of how we want to participate in it. And when we are able to do that, it's a lot less exhausting for the people around us, and they can trust us more. I can say my relationships that I have in my life right now, especially my closest ones, my daughter, my husband, my mom, the people that I have been subject to me not having emotional intelligence in the past, I know they trust my responses and they trust me with their situations. They can come to me with things that before I might not have known how to handle. They can come to me now and have a responsible reaction because I have really developed this muscle of understanding the way I tick and being comfortable in that space and giving myself agency. And I have not been perfect through this. This is not easy, especially if, I don't want to say especially because I've only been in one situation. I've only been raised in one situation, but I wasn't raised around any emotional, intelligent human beings. So it's not like I had any experience with it. But I want to say it's probably really uncomfortable for everybody who first begins, because it's not really taught in school. It's not the most popular topic. It's not anything that they gauge or test for, and in school, I mean, and I don't know, we weren't talking about it when we were sitting around the dinner table when I was kids. So it's not something that I feel is like one of the foundational, values or anything passed down. And that might not be true for everybody's situation. It certainly is true for mine. The methods in which I've learned this have been plenty. Like I said, I started this journey into self-awareness when I first got clean from opiates in 2008. And when I did that, I went through a 12-step program. And part of this 12 steps is a literal inventory into your inner self. And I've always thought everybody needs to do it because it really was my first. I mean, we literally had to write out like our patterns and recognize the emotions that sent us into these different patterns in our life, like in black and white. And it was very eye-opening. And it was the first time that I recognized certain sensations as fear. I remember the first time it was asked, like, what are you afraid of? I literally had one thing, and it was spiders. I thought my only fear was spiders. I didn't even know how to recognize the emotion of fear in my body. And so it was really eye-opening to me to see all of the variations of fear and where I felt it. And that sometimes fear manifests and looks like laziness or procrastination. I always thought it would look like very obviously like fear, but that's not always the truth. And I didn't know that until this. And I even learned in that process how uncomfortable it can be for me to feel extreme joy and excitement back then. Not anymore. I've learned to handle and be able to experience my emotions much better now, or with much more awareness. But since then, that muscle has grown, and it's drastically improved my abilities to have relationships with others. It also gives me discernment over the people that I have in my life. Now, one thing to point out about myself and my channel and what you'll be going through with me is that I will reference and talk about God a lot. And God is of primary importance to me and is before every single thing that I do. And I will point out the fact that what this ultimately led me to when I first started this process was a deeper relationship with my higher power, who I call God. And I don't get tripped over what people call God. That force, that energy, that thing that takes a tiny little seed and you put it into the ground and it turns into a big, deep-rooted tree, like whatever that is, because I've never met a human being that's capable of doing that. That force, whatever that is what I choose to call God. And like I was saying, this work has given me the ability to have discernment over the people that I surround myself with. But I don't want to say that I only surround myself with people that have emotional intelligence. I don't believe as a woman who has a very deep relationship with God, that I need to limit myself to only people that understand the way that they tick. But I have discernment according to the strength of the relationship that I have with God at that moment, because I don't need to trust anything except for that God is going to guide me into the correct relationships and give me the correct words and put me in the right places at the right time. And the process of learning myself and the process of understanding my emotions really was like peeling away the layers of an onion and peeling away the layers of myself, these emotional strongholds, these patterns, these program reactions I would have that would just push people away. I started to learn them, shed light on them, and lovingly began to shift those into patterns that served me and served the people around me. And as I did that and peeled away the layers of who I thought I was or who I needed to be protected at that time, it was started to just peel away the layers of everything that was not the truth, everything that was not really Melissa. And when I peeled it all away, what was left underneath was just a whole lot of God love. And my primary reasoning behind this channel and the videos that I'm going to create and the direction that I want to go is to gift the people that are called to watch this with the tools and the understandings that God has given to me at this point in my life. Because after everything I've been through and all of the things I've put other people through, the strongest part of me is God. And it really did lead me back to my relationship with God. And my primary purpose on this planet is just to help people identify what is not God. I come from an interesting place, like the intersection between what is commonly called New Age and then having this really deep relationship with my Creator and healing a relationship with Jesus Christ. And it's an interesting intersection. And this doesn't get along with this very well out there in the world. And what I can tell you is that the work is just to peel away everything that isn't the truth. And if you dive into that work and you prayerfully allow yourself to confront everything that comes up that doesn't feel like truth, the truth will be revealed to you. And it doesn't have to be my truth or anybody else's truth. And it will shift and change and it will look different, but every layer is going to feel like liberation, more and more liberation. So one of the very first primary steps that brought me to the place that I am today was the practice of self-inquiry. And it can have a really negative connotation with some people because it is considered that it's really selfish just looking at yourself. But the mind is tricky, and the mind is like a computer that just traps and records information and patterns that's trying to protect you from dying. It's trying to keep you alive. And those patterns can really bring you into places that are scary and not the truth and tricky, and they loop and it will loop and loop and loop. And that is my definition of hell. And through the process of understanding what makes my mind tick and trying to get to the root of that and to heal those places, and then purposely add in patterns that benefit me and the people around me, I have learned to identify what was always holding me back. And it has revealed within me like my true strength, which is my, my strength in God, my relationship with God. And that is the motivation behind these videos. That is the motivation behind what I'm here to do. And I'm grateful that you're here with me, and I'm excited to hear about your journey as I continue to share mine. And this video already went over longer than I wanted it to, so I'm going to end it now. And I look forward to seeing you in the next videos.